Don't buy these types of houses on the Emerald Coast.
If we were buyers right now, we wouldn't buy these 5 types of houses. So stick around and let's talk about what they are.
All right, so Aaron and I sell real estate across the Emerald Coast, everywhere from Pensacola to Destin, Florida. And these are the types of houses that we've seen buyers get burned on time and time again.
And these aren't just bad deals. These are bad investments that could end up costing you thousands to tens of thousands of dollars if you get into these deals.
Okay, so the first house that I would not buy on the Emerald Coast is a home that's in a flood zone or adjacent to flood zones or wetlands. And yes, I know, the majority of Florida is in a flood zone, a flood X zone, which means a 1 in 500 year chance of flooding. However, that's not always true, because I bought my first house in an X flood zone and later found out that it had previously flooded and the owner did not disclose. So that's one of the reasons that I'm a realtor now, is to protect people like you from making the same mistakes I did. So now let's break down some of those flood zones and the risk that applies. If you're buying on the Emerald Coast, you need to really understand the different flood zones and the potential risk. Flood zone X is potentially what the entire state sits in, which is what they call a 1 in 500 year floodplain, meaning that in 500 years, your home may flood once. However, I was in a next flood zone and found out that my home had flooded 4 times prior. So what does that mean? Well, it means that when we're looking at houses for you, we're going to make sure that there was no previous flood events on that home, and we're going to check on insurance claims for you. Also, we're going to look at the drainage for the area and just make sure the water drains away from the house and not towards it. Now, getting into the other flood zones, we have flood zone AE and flood zone VE in this area. Flood zone AE is what they call a once in 100 year flood. The intensity of hurricanes going up over the last 20 years, we're seeing that AE flood zone become more of a risk more and more each year. And if you have a flood zone AE property, you're required to have flood insurance. So I'm personally not going to buy a house in an AE flood zone unless the base elevation of that home is higher than the base elevation required for that flood zone. And the way we find out if that is true is going to be with getting an elevation certificate from a surveyor when we get a survey on the home. But me personally, I'm not going to buy a house in an area that has an increased flood risk if I can prevent it.
Yeah, and in addition to the flood damaging your house, you're also going to have a bit more trouble reselling that property. Now, in the current day and age, it's very much common knowledge that hurricanes are bad and floods are going to come. So when somebody finds out your house is in a flood zone, it is going to make it that much more difficult to sell your property.
And lastly, we're going to talk about flood zone VE, which is what they call the velocity zone. That is going to be areas adjacent to the beach with a very high potential risk for storm surge in a hurricane. Again, like AE, VE flood zones require flood insurance, and those prices can be anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000 depending on the flood risk and the elevation of the home.
And if you're looking for an example of what a VE house is, I believe SpongeBob lives in one. Now, the second type of home I would avoid was anything in the up and coming areas. And we need to be very careful when we do this because there are fair housing laws and we're not allowed to steer you away from certain neighborhoods.
Yeah, but what I can tell you is that if a realtor tells you that an area is up and coming, you need to do your own research. Because yes, that area could be gentrifying and home values could be increasing, or that area could be up and coming for the last 20 years.
So what you need to do is a little bit of your own research. You can use websites like crimegrade.org, and it'll give you a great picture of what the crime in that area looks like and what you can expect. Another one I like to use is just get on Google Maps and just drive around the area on Google Maps, see what the neighbors look like and see what you're getting yourself into. I know I've shown a lot of houses and we didn't do this beforehand, and then we'd show up and the buyers just weren't into the neighborhood. We had one where we showed up and somebody had built a tent on the porch and there was people living in the tent and the buyer just wasn't into that.
Aaron, do you remember was it the first open house you did when I sent you to an up and coming area for a listing I had? Aaron called me and he said, hey man, is the Packer Marlboro Reds and the crack pipe, does that come with the house? We had somebody break in and was actually staying in the house. So these up and coming areas may not be up and coming as quickly as you think they are. And the third type of home that we would not buy in this area are going to be bad flips. There are a ton of new and inexperienced flippers in this area, and some that just aren't honest. And what we're seeing are a lot of red flags like unpermitted work or covering up potentially bad areas with like soft spots in floors or termite damage.
And yeah, this really brings me into kind of a story we had with a buyer of ours where they had changed the electrical panel to make it look like it was copper and updated. But once you got into the attic, they had tied into the old aluminum still. So these flippers were hiding stuff like this, and they were busted on it during the inspection. But it still drags the buyer through the whole process, and it can be an expensive process.
Yeah, and it costs, $450 for an inspection just to find out that the flippers were hiding things. But that's why we use inspectors that we trust, that are very thorough, anytime that we have a buyer that's buying a flip. Aaron and I have done flips across the Florida Panhandle, so we understand what it takes to do it the right way. And all right, so if you're thinking, man, these guys are telling me the truth, I really trust them, give us a call, shoot us a text. We'll hop on a call with you and go over the right areas and the right types of homes to buy on the Emerald Coast. The link to our calendar is in the description. That's the easiest way to get in touch with us. Just book a time on our calendar and we'll connect.
Number 4 is going to be an older home that has no updates. I mean, there's some great homes that have some great charm and you can get them at a good price, but you are buying into some original systems in this house. So you can expect original electrical, original HVAC, windows, dated roofs, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of buyers who have previously bought homes like this being denied insurance after they already bought the home a few years down the road. Or we're seeing insurance companies requiring them to update things like their roof or windows. And a lot of people don't realize when they're coming from the Midwest or other parts of the country that these types of updates are almost required now by Florida Building Code. For instance, single pane windows are not energy efficient at all and are very likely to break in a hurricane situation. So insurance companies are requiring owners to swap windows or older electrical just to maintain insurance on the home. This is obviously very costly and could be up to $500 a window and around $15,000 to rewire a home. So for me, buying one of those older homes with a lot of charm, I'm really gonna have to know what I'm getting into, or I'm just not going to do it at all. And the last home that I'm not going to buy on the Florida Emerald Coast is going to be homes that are on the water, but not on pilings. And what I mean by that is prior to the new FEMA maps being drawn and the new Florida building codes, a lot of homes were built on the bay, sound, or even the Gulf, and they're not at a higher base flood elevation or on pilings to keep them above the storm surge level. So quick story, I have a friend who's lived here her entire life, and they had a home that was on the bay, but wasn't on pilings. And when Hurricane Ivan hit, the storm surge was so large that it actually went over their roof. Her mom decided not to rebuild that house for 25 years, literally, due to the amount of damage that she saw. She wanted to watch over the next 2 decades of any hurricane to see how high she should build that house. She ended up building it 15 foot above the original home. So where the previous roof was where her new floor starts.
Now, you may just say to yourself, I'm going to buy that waterfront home. I don't care. I'm going to get flood insurance. I'm going to be fine. You are going to be shocked at the amount of money you are going to be spending on flood insurance. It is not cheap when you're living in a spot that's probably going to flood.
Yeah, you're talking $10,000 to $15,000. And if you're in one of those flood zones, that's mandatory flood insurance if you have a mortgage. So you're looking at another potentially $1,000 a month in flood insurance on top of your already high-priced homeowners insurance and your mortgage with a 6% interest rate right now. All right, guys, so we went over the top 5 types of homes that we're not going to buy in this area, but we also have a ton of videos that talk about the types of homes that we would buy in this area or the areas that we do like. So Check out our other videos, like, subscribe, give us a call, shoot us a text message, or go down to the description. There's a link directly to our calendar, and you can book a time to hop on a call with us and go over the actual areas and types of homes that you should buy on the Emerald Coast. I'm Caleb Drake. This is Aaron Howard. We are with the Be More group at Levin, Rinke Realty, and we aim to be more than just realtors. We aim to be a pillar of education and trust for our buyers moving to the Emerald Coast. So give us a call, shoot us a message. We'd love to connect. Like, subscribe. See you on the next video.